All right, the clock has struck 7, so we are now officially ready to start our business meeting. So I'm calling to order the Kalamazoo City Commission business meeting for Monday, May 1st. And our first order of business, Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Juarez from the meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? All right, thank you. Well, we are honored this evening to have here for invocation Rabbi Hannah Estrin from the Congregation of Moses. So help us get started with our meeting tonight. Thank you so much. So mic on there, Scott? Yes, ask everyone to stand, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
So I just wanted to give a little bit of Torah before we do a blessing, because this week we read about a very unique thing in the Bible, and it was about leaving the corners of our field, and how leaving the corners of our field when we harvest is not a choice, it is an obligation, because the corners of our field don't belong to us. And the modern version of leaving the corners of our field is giving taxes. We don't really give taxes, we have taxes taken out, which means that everyone standing here today is really doing God's work. And it's appreciated that we can all walk in the way of God and take those corners and do what we can to make this a better world. So may we all walk in the ways of God and bring light and laughter, learning and happiness to this world. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you again, Rabbi Estrin. I appreciate that. We have a couple proclamations this evening, and our commissioners are going to read them. I will come down as we read them. The first one is Bike Month. Is there someone? Yes, there we go. Commissioner Pradle.
All right, good evening. We have a proclamation tonight for May 2023 being the month of our Bike Month. And Nolan from our city team is here to accept the proclamation from community planning. So Bike Month, May 2023. Whereas throughout the month of May, the city of Kalamazoo will celebrate biking and the freedom, the joy, and the well-being from within us, as well as the power that more people riding bikes has in making life better for everyone. And whereas May 3rd is Bike to School Day, and May 13th through 20th is Kalamazoo Area Bike Week, and May 13th is the inaugural Kalamazoo Area Cycle Show, and May 15th through 21 is Bike to Work Week, and May 17th is the Bike Rodeo. And whereas throughout the month of May, Kalamazooans and visitors to the city of Kalamazoo will experience the joys of bicycling through group rides, races, and community building events, educational programs, and or by simply getting out and going somewhere by bike or engaging with a local bike advocacy group and organization. And whereas bicycling has been shown to improve citizens' health, well-being, and quality of life on our streets and facilitate in creating a more complete streets. And whereas the City of Kalamazoo, Community Planning and Economic Development, Parks and Recreation, the Public Safety Department, and local bike advocacy organizations will be joining with the League of American Bicyclists in promoting bicycling during the month of May 2023. And whereas these groups are also promoting the use of the bicycle as both a means of transportation and recreation year-round to attract more visitors to enjoy our local parks and trail systems, restaurants, hotels, retail establishments, and cultural and scenic attractions. And finally, whereas these groups are also promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education during Bike Month and year-round in an effort to reduce collisions, injuries, and fatalities and improve health and safety for everyone on the road and implement the City of Kalamazoo's Complete Streets policy. And now, therefore, I, Commissioner Chris Pradle, on behalf of The 54th City Commission and Mayor David F. Anderson do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Bike Month in the city of Kalamazoo and urge all residents to join me in this special observance.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson and City Commissioners, for accepting and declaring May National Bike Month for the City of Kalamazoo. We'll be joining communities across the country celebrating this month as it's over 50 years old, and I think it's a real opportunity for us to, as a community, come together around non-motorized activities, both for recreation and transportation, and really try to bridge that gap between how we create safer streets within the city. Those three departments mentioned, and actually all city staff have done a great job at doing this, and we want to continue doing that. And I hope to see many of you at some of these events this month, so thank you very much.
Good evening. I would like to invite Keontae Lyman up to the podium, and Ms. Pat. I'm honored to read this proclamation for Society for History and Racial Equity Share 20th Anniversary. Whereas the Society for History and Racial Equity, formerly known as the Southwest Michigan Black Heritage Society, was founded in 2003 by Kalamazoo resident Donna Odom to research, document, and preserve the history of African Americans in Southwest Michigan. And whereas the Society for History and Racial Equity, known as SHARE, is based in Kalamazoo and fosters connections and conversations on race and provides awareness of racism and the broad societal benefits of its elimination. And whereas the Society for History and Racial Equity offers activities and services to promote racial healing and center on racial equity that is grounded in an understanding of Southwest Michigan's unique history. And whereas the City for History and Racial Equity focuses community and personal healing through acknowledging our common humanity and building authentic relationships across differences. And whereas in 2015, the grassroots nonprofit had expanded its scope and reach, and as such, changed its name to SHARE, the Society for History and Racial Equity, to better reflect its two-pronged mission of documenting, preserving, and sharing history along with promoting racial equity in the Kalamazoo region. And whereas in 2021, the Society for History and Racial Equity hired its first full-time executive director, Keontae Lyman. And whereas the Society for History and Racial Equity hosts the Summit on Racism, an annual event attended by hundreds of people that focuses on a theme and offers a nationally recognized keynote speaker and numerous workshops and breakout sessions for deeper learning and dialogue. And whereas the Society for History and Racial Equity throughout the year brings community members of all backgrounds and ethnicities together and provides spaces and programs by which to understand our shared history and build trust, respect, and deeper relationships. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Kalamazoo City Board of Commissioners does hereby acknowledge with gratitude the work of the Society of History and Racial Equity and wishes to commend and honor SHARE on its 20th anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, good evening to the Commission, to Mayor Anderson, to each and every one of you listening online or watching online and here in the audience. We just want to say thank you for acknowledging our 20 years here in this community, as we know that racial equity is important to the Kalamazoo community, as we know that racism is considered a public health crisis here in Kalamazoo, as we work to eliminate some of those barriers that come in this community. So we really just want to say thank you. We hope that you all are able to join us, or others in the community are able to join us on May 20th, where we will be celebrating the work of SHARE in this community, and that is at 3:00 p.m. at the Portage Senior Center. So I just want to make sure that we mention that we're having an event this month to honor that, as well as our regular events as mentioned, the Summit on Racism and Taste of Jazz and other things throughout the year. But thank you all again, and really appreciate your time.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioners. Next item on our agenda is to adopt the formal agenda. Are there any commissioners that would like to pull anything off of G, the consent agenda? See no one, is there anyone here in the chambers who would like to have an item moved from our consent agenda to the regular agenda? All right, see no one. Next, communications, Manager Ritzma.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Now is the opportunity to provide a public comment here for our business meeting. Just a reminder that this is not an opportunity for a dialogue or discussion. This is an opportunity for you to present a comment or concern here to the City Commission in public. If you would like to take advantage of that opportunity, you'll have 3 minutes. Please come forward and state your name and whether you live in the city. While we're waiting a moment to see if anyone's going to come forward for that, I want to remind the community that you can call in to make a public comment. That number is 888-382-9556. And I would start calling in now if you want to. Anybody in the chambers? See no one, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. Has anybody called in?
We'll go ahead and check here. We do not.
All right. Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. Appreciate it. Next is public hearings. Do you want to? All right. So I'm going to open a public hearing then to receive comments on the program year 2023 action plan as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Manager Risser, do you have staff here?
We'll have a presentation this evening by Julie Johnston, our compliance specialist in community planning economic development. Julie?
Thank you.
Welcome, Julie Johnson.
Me tonight. I do have a brief presentation on the grant programs that we receive each year and how the annual action plan feeds into those programs. So the City of Kalamazoo is considered a participating jurisdiction with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. That means that every year we receive a certain amount of money from HUD as an entitlement community. Our annual allocation is community development block grant funds and the home investment partnership funds. The city used to also receive emergency shelter grant funding, but that money now goes directly to our continuum of care. So there are two plans that are important to this process. The first is our consolidated plan, which is typically a 5-year plan and talks about our community development needs and our housing needs and develops goals for a 5-year period. Then we have our annual action plan, which describes how we're going to use that money every year to try to meet the goals that we've set for ourselves. So this year would typically have been the last year of our current consolidated plan. This is the 5th year of that plan. But staff reached out to our local HUD office and requested an extension of our consolidated plan for a year to allow us to align the public participation processes that will happen with our master plan update so that we can look at goals for the master plan as well as goals for the consolidated plan at the same time. And also to help with that, participation fatigue that often the community gets if we did it this year instead of next year. So our new consolidated plan won't start until 2025. So next year when I come to you, it will be the 6th year of our current consolidated plan. So we have 4 main goals in our plan to improve the quality of housing, affordable housing within our community, to work towards ending homelessness, and that's where our emergency shelter grant funds go to our continuum of care, to advance the sustainability of our CDBG eligible neighborhoods, And then finally, to develop well-adjusted and productive adults through supporting activities for our youth. So the first grant is the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. The goal of the CDBG program is to create viable communities through three different avenues. The first is decent housing, and then a suitable living environment, which is kind of where our neighborhood improvement work comes in, and then expanding economic opportunities. Also, in the CDBG program, any activity that we fund either must benefit low-income persons or families, prevent or eliminate slums and blight within our community, or meet an urgent need under a state of emergency. That is one of the categories that we don't normally use. It was used during the COVID pandemic, and we received additional funding during COVID. But probably 90% of our funds, any of the funds that don't go directly to staff to support the management of our programs, goes to benefiting our low income persons and families within our core neighborhoods. Also, the categories for eligible activities are pretty wide within Community Development Block Grant. We can do improvements to public facilities, we can do housing, rehab, code enforcement, public services, which are community policing officers. We provide some CDBG funding for that. That's considered a public service. And the youth activities that we're funding this year, if approved by the commission, also are a public service. So the next grant is the Home Investment Partnership Program. This is the largest federal grant that is directly for housing. So the only use for this program, this grant, is housing in some form or fashion. Build, buy, rehabilitate. It also allows for funding for tenant-based rental assistance to help people who have rental needs. One of the great things about the home program is that it establishes affordability periods depending on how much money we spend on a particular unit. So if we help a unit with less than $15,000, that home or that rental unit must remain available to a low-income family for 5 years. And so the more money we spend, the longer that affordability period, which allows us to help maintain affordable units within the city. Okay, so moving on to our action plan, we will be utilizing a total of $2.2 million in the 2023 program year, which will start July 1st and run through June 30th of 2024. And these are the totals that we are receiving from HUD. We were very lucky this year in that we got our actual allocation from HUD, official allocation, early. We all think that might have something to do with what's going on with our federal government right now. But we received our allocation, and we know for sure going in for our 2023 program year that these are the funds that we will receive. This is a funding trend over the last 20 years, and unfortunately you can see that funding has gone down. One of the positive things, though, that I think from looking at this graph is that over the last 6 years, our funding has stabilized, which is very helpful in the planning process because we can't guarantee anything, of course, but we can plan towards the amount of money that we typically get and have received over the last 6 years. Our consolidated plan, as I said, has specific goals that we're trying to reach, and these are the amounts of funding from the CDBG and home program that are going to each this year. So for housing, a little over $1 million, $55,000 in youth services, and $750,000 for neighborhood enhancement activities. For our youth services, these are the programs that we're hoping to fund if the City Commission approves the action plan tonight, which will allow us to serve approximately 302 children over the next program year. And then for our housing activities, we're hoping to add 11 new housing units, rehab 76 units for a total of 87 units touched by CDBG or home over the next year. And then finally, our neighborhood enhancement outcomes include services to our core neighborhoods in community policing, code enforcement, demolition of blighted buildings, and other public improvements. The action plan process takes a little while. We have to make sure that we have opportunities for the public to comment. You might remember back in March, you opened a 30-day public comment period. We held a public hearing with our Community Development Act Advisory Committee, and we're holding our public hearing tonight. The draft action plan has been on the city's website for 3 months now. So what we're hoping the City Commission will consider tonight is to approve the recommendations from our Community Development Act Advisory Committee on the competitive application process that we held, approve the overall action plan for program year 2023, and then later in your consent agenda, we have a resolution that is required by HUD to allow the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development to be our certifying official for HUD documents and for our environmental review record, which is also required by HUD. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for city staff at this time, commissioners? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. Just a couple quick questions, as I go through the action plan itself. When you talk about blighted areas, what exactly, give me a definition of a blighted area or something that's blighted that you would take down with those funds?
So we do not have in the city any designated blighted areas. The way that we utilize our demolition funds is to demolish blighted properties. So HUD has a very specific requirement if you're going to designate an area of the community, quote unquote, blighted. The staff would rather just work with individual property owners in dealing with particular blighted properties. So usually those properties come through our code enforcement process. Often the property owners voluntarily demolish their, they sign forms that say that they volunteer to have their buildings demolished. Sometimes we have to go through the dangerous building boards to get something designated as dangerous and blighted before we can take the building down. And then we also have a program through our partnership with Community Homeworks called a Code Enforcement Repair Program. So if a property hasn't been deemed blighted or dangerous by code enforcement or the Dangerous Buildings Board, then we would refer them to our code enforcement repair program to see if we can help move that property to a place where it is no longer dangerous for people to live in it. We predominantly focus on residential in our demolition program.
And thank you for that. And so what do you think might be a cost what do you think would be a cost to remove from the low end to the high end to remove a blighted structure?
So it really depends on what is in the structure. If there's asbestos or lead-based paint or any of those dangerous chemicals, we have to mitigate those before the building can come down. But I don't have the exact costs, but they generally range, I would say, somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000, depending on the building and the size.
Okay. Have you guys earmarked any or pinpointed any or know any that you would want to work on right now?
I'm sorry, I don't actually have that information. It goes, like I said, through our code enforcement process. They may have a list of properties that they're working with right now, but it doesn't come to me until we're actually to the point of doing the demolition.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that is, when you say if it costs between 10 and 25,000, depending on what's within that building, and if I'm reading this correctly, and correct me if I'm not, but I see that there's only $50,000 for demolition, so that would be, if we're thinking on the high end, that's 2 homes.
Potentially, yes. We do have some existing demolition money, CDBG money from 2022 that has not been spent. We have 50,000 of that as well. But that's true. It could be anywhere from 2 to 5 homes with the funding that we have.
Okay. I was just trying to put that in perspective, when you think about, when I get emails and calls from individuals talking about some of the blighted properties that we have, and if, with those amount of funds, you're only taking care of, 2 to 3. So that is good that you do have funds from last year that you would be able to incorporate.
Yes.
And
And
then
it's certainly, I'm sorry to interrupt, it's certainly something, Commissioner Decker, that when we start working on the new consolidated plan and start, garnering public comment, participation on that plan, if it is something that rises to the level of a need that our core neighborhoods say that they want, then that is something we could look at funding more in future action plans.
Thank you. And then just one more thing, kind of on that same page of that, of the plan. So I know, CPED has their small business loans, but in that activity, it says code enforcement. Can you explain what type of code enforcement would be done with that?
So in the budget that you see, those small business loans were from many years ago, not from the current program that I think PJ manages. So those dollars are from small loans that were given out 10, 15 years ago that are being repaid. So that current CDBG program is not in place. The program that's in place now is not funded with block grant. So the funds that come through that are CDBG dollars, according to HUD, need to go to other block grant programs. So we have funneled those funds into our code enforcement program and supporting our code enforcement staff.
Okay, thank you. So for the total, from what I'm reading, it would be 500,000 that would be going towards code enforcement.
It's 400,000 in direct CDBG, and then I think it's another 11,000 through the program income.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions or comments? Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you for such a clear presentation. You broke down a lot of information into very manageable things. And I want to thank the Citizens Committee that spent so many hours working on that. But I also want to say that you're doing the best you can with the money that we have, $2.25 million to deal with the housing problems in our city is disgraceful. Not from us,
Right.
but from the federal government. There was a time when the federal government was serious about housing and put a lot of money into it. But between 1981 and 1985, the federal government cut the budget for the Department of Housing and Urban Development by 75%. And that's never been restored.
No. Right.
So I just want to say, you are doing the best you can. We are doing the best we can with the little bit of money that we get. But this is a national disgrace. And the federal government, it's not just here, but it's all over the country. We have people sleeping on the streets, you can't get through, people doubling up, people sleeping in their yards, whatever. The federal government has to get serious about this issue. And I think we have to advocate more to get them to take their part.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Other questions or comments here? All right, well, thank you so much. Hey, just a couple quick things here then. Not every blighted structure that's taken down in the city is necessarily taken down using these funds.
That's
So
correct.
blighted structures are owned privately, generally speaking. So I don't know what the numbers are, but there'll be multiple circumstances where the owner themselves takes down that blighted property, depending what happened to it. Let's say it was a fire, and insurance might take care of that. So I wonder at what point in that entire process does it get to the point where we're having to step in? Do you have any particular awareness about that?
Not really.
Okay.
I know that there are decisions that are made. It's a very long process. It's not something that is done quickly to take somebody's property and demolish the building on it. But you're correct. There are several avenues of funding, particularly the insurance avenue, when it's a fire or it's been damaged in some way. But when it gets to a certain point, if we have a property owner that is low income, they don't have the funds to take it down, they don't have the funds to repair it, then CDBG can step in. When that happens, I'm not exactly sure in the process. If it's something you're interested in, though, I can find that out.
I think it would be helpful, Commissioner Decker, just it would help when people respond with emails in terms of just some clarity about who is doing this, who are all the various responsible parties.
Okay, I will make sure that gets done.
I appreciate that. Also, as Vice Mayor Cooney pointed out, there are so many committed citizens in Kalamazoo who spend time on boards and committees helping with all kinds of decision-making processes and is really kind of unsung work in a lot of ways. CDAC board is definitely one of those groups. So I certainly want to recognize all that work for years and years and years. Once again, having the challenge of more requests than there is money to fund those requests and having to make those hard decisions and really help us put together these recommendations. So thank you, CDAC. And this work doesn't get done without our community partners. And I know we have a great one sitting up here with us, our Commissioner Prado from Community Homeworks, but out here in the audience, a phenomenal partner as well, representative from Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Service, Matt and Beth are here, and they ended up doing much of the work that we can help fund, at least in part, by this effort. So thank you for your work in the community. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
So commissioners, the recommended, let me see. No, here's an opportunity for anyone else to comment on this topic.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Matt Mozark, City resident. Just wanted to take a few moments here to encourage you to vote yes on this action plan and to thank City staff and CDAC. These are never easy decisions. I was on that board for many years, and I know how it is, and many nights reading over thick binders of grant applications. So really appreciate all their work on that, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mozark. Anyone else that wants to comment on this item? All right, seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve the program year 2023 action plan and action plan budget. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Hess. Any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
I'll be abstaining because of my employer, who's a proposed recipient of HUD Program Year 23 funds.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion is approved. Next is the consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 9 items this evening for approval. First is approval of a contract with OHM Advisors for the development of the Parks and Recreation 5-year master plan, 2024 to 2029, in the amount of $104,000. Next is the approval of a professional services agreement with Manick and Smith Group Incorporated for the design of the Bronson Boulevard resurfacing project in the amount of $112,583. Next is the approval of an extension of the contract with Rathco Safety Supply LLC for sign installation and maintenance services in the amount of $182,275. Next is the approval of an extension of the contract with Santiago Services LLC for general and specialized trash and debris removal services in the amount of $453,000. Next is the approval of a 2-year renewal contract with Republic Services to perform quarterly bulk trash removal in the amount of $559,214.04. Next is the approval of a 24-month contract extension with Constellation New Energy Gas Division LLC for natural gas to be used to heat selected city facilities in the amount of $750,000. Next is the adoption of a resolution recommending approval of a social district permit for Saugatuck Brewing Company LLC at 200 East Michigan Avenue. Next is the adoption of a resolution to authorize an official representative and certifying officer for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development grant documentation. And finally, acceptance of a federal highway safety improvement program grant in the amount of $164,000 for the citywide signal optimization project.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 9 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes, but I'm going to abstain from G8 since it's somewhat related to item F1.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Items on the consent agenda are approved. Next, reports and legislation. Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a couple of things this evening. First, with the commercial rezoning that was being proposed by our Community Planning Economic Development Department, I know there have been a lot of emails and thoughts about the inclusion of 2 or 3 parcels on the corner of Stadium and Drake. Those have been removed from what's going to be proposed going forward in the commercial rezoning. This week, Wednesday, at between 6 and 7:30 p.m., we have our meeting with the residents to discuss the citywide zoning code and map update. And it's being changed to a new location. So it's going to be at the Dormouse Theater on 1030 Portage Street. And again, that's 6 to 7:30 p.m. Parking is available behind the theater, and there's also on-street parking on Lake Street. So just wanted to clarify that. And then we had a committee of the whole meeting on public safety this evening at 5, and we covered a lot of things that public safety has been doing and proposing to do, and just wanted to compliment and call out the bravery and the work that was done saving the gentleman's life that had the minivan that fell on his chest. Certainly life-saving measures and successful measures were taken, so thank you, public safety, for that. We also had a homicide a couple weeks back at the Campus Point Mall up on by campus, Western Michigan University. I'd like Chief Boyson to come forward to talk about that and some of the concerns we have in general with that property and the owners there, and what we hope to accomplish to prevent future events like that happening. So, Chief.
Welcome, Chief.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and City leadership. Yes, we had our second homicide of the year was in the Campus Point Mall area, and addressing gun violence really continues to be our #1 priority as a community and as public safety. And we have seen this area, Campus Point Mall, located at West Michigan and Howard, in that intersection, that area continues to be a hot spot for gun violence. And we've really tried to address this over the years with the property owners and suggesting ideas, and we're just not moving forward. So one of the things that I asked, I reached out to the director of Southwest Michigan First, Clarence Lloyd, to put together a meeting with community leaders and stakeholders around this area, and what can we do collectively as a community to address some of these issues. This area is not safe for the community, and it's not safe for my officers who have to respond to these crowds and dangerous environments every single weekend. And so really we need to come up with strategies where we can work together to come up with solutions, because we can't continue this going on throughout the summer. And so hopefully out of this meeting, we'll get some good discussion. We have partners from Western Michigan University that are going to attend, some of the business owners in that area, and other community members that can hopefully come up with some ideas and strategies where we can leverage that to address the owners of that property, see what we can put in place to fix this problem going forward. And that meeting is Monday, May 8th, so this coming Monday.
Thank you, Chief Boyson. Yeah, any questions for the chief on this?
What time's the meeting?
10 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
It is on Ring Road in the Trimpey building at WMU, in the multi-purpose room there. Yep.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right,
very
Thank
much.
you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity to hear remarks from commissioners. Is there anyone who would like to make remarks this evening? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, the presentation we had at the COW was very encouraging and inspiring, so thank you, Chief. And please tell your team, again, I know we've been saying it a lot today, but we mean it. I mean it this time, for real. So thank you. You know, with us getting ready to get a new city attorney, I think this is like a really, really good time for us to re-engage the committee that was working on appointees evaluations. What we have right now, for me, is not sufficient enough. And I think as we're moving forward and becoming more transparent, and we want to hold people accountable in a way that is just, I would like us to come up with a plan to recreate or get another tool for our appointees. I wanted to say that today because it's very important that we be able to do things in a just way. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is, you know, the COW presentations are always good. However, when we get emails and we can't respond to all of those, I would love for us to use one of our COW meetings to have open discussion and dialogue about issues that our community are really facing. And so presentations, good. And I think that's an opportunity for us to engage more with community, and we probably will get more people in the chambers because we will be open and have those discussions around areas of housing, gun violence, what was going on with Asylum Lake. I think sometimes our community thinks we're just checking the box and that we all agree on everything, and that's the farthest from the truth. So I really want to see us, and I've been asking for this since last year, that we utilize one of the COWs to have open discussions amongst ourselves and really hash out some of those things. So I'm still proud to serve with you all, and I want us to deepen our relationship, not only with community, but with one another. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Anyone else? Commissioner Hess.
I'll go. Commissioner Hoffman, I'll serve with you on that committee. I know I've been talking to Director Dusek about working on that real-time evaluation. So I'm happy to do that and make sure that we do hold ourselves and each other accountable. First thing, Governor Whitmer has declared May as Military Appreciation Month. So I would like to take this moment to honor those former military or current serving military for their sacrifice and their success in this role. I know that a lot of our public safety officers have military experience, and so a double shout out to you tonight. I want to give gratitude to our Parks and Rec Department for really doubling down and cleaning up the parks, especially after the ice storm, and getting them ready for spring, although, well, it's not really spring yet, but people are beginning to go out to the parks, and I appreciate the Parks and Rec Department really cleaning up those parks and getting them ready for people. So we talked tonight a little bit with the officers and with the police department about traffic and traffic calming and safety here, and I have a few things I want to say about that. First of all, an announcement that the meetings about conversion to two-way are going to happen. The public meetings for two-way conversion will be happening on May 24th from open house from 4:30 to 7 at Bell's, and then on Tuesday, May 30th, at the Catalyst Center on Water Street from 9 to 11. And those are open houses where the plans will be available to us and we'll be able to make comments and weigh in on all of that. So that said, the two-way is going to happen. Then the traffic calming stuff is deep to me and dear to me. I had a call this week from a friend and city resident whose son was broadsided and hit on his way to school, totaled their family van. I was totaled and hit broadsided in January by a distracted speeding driver running a red light, and so was he, all along West Main. So that said, it's at the top of my mind, and how do we do this? What can we do about this? When I taught health, I used the illness-wellness continuum, where the first step to a higher level of being here is awareness. So I'd like to help us begin this conversation with awareness of what's going on in the city with speeding, distracted, unsafe driving, and then to really move on to education. How do we help ourselves relearn it? We have to relearn it. And with the changes to two-way, people are going to have to relearn our streets. It's going to be a process. We're all going to have to work together and be patient. So we would like to, in the city, and the city is working hard at working at safe streets for all. And today with giving a proclamation to Bike Month. So it's Bike Month, but bikers are still afraid to ride on city streets because the drivers are so distracted and speeding. One thing I would like to say, right over here on West Michigan Avenue at Church Street is a lighted pedestrian sign. When that's flashing, you're supposed to stop. I'm often driving down West Michigan and cars are buzzing right through it and people are just waiting to cross as they usually do so please pay attention to those signals and those signs for the pedestrians. So I did reach out to our traffic engineer, and George Waring, I just want to share this with you from him. He said, I would be supportive of me sharing this information because slowing down saves lives, prosperity, and the pursuit of happiness for individuals, not to mention property as well. Practically speaking, going fast in the city doesn't achieve the desired effect, arriving at your destination more quickly and with more time to spare. In fact, generally speaking, one fast city driver and safe at speed limit city driver will arrive at their desired destination within a few seconds to a minute of each other. Even a 2 to 5 mile per hour difference can mean the difference between life and death and disabling injury or walking away. As we continue to do our streets and work on traffic calming in the city, I'm asking everyone that's within earshot of this to really look at how fast you're going in the city. It may seem that you're not, but when you really truly do go the speed limit, it's much safer for everyone involved. So I'm trying to do it myself. I found that going the speed limit feels uncomfortable sometimes. So we have to do that for ourselves, for our community, and for the safety of everybody who lives in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Anyone else? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I too also want to echo the chief and KDPS on that presentation, and also the presentation on our program year for HUD. I believe there's some great things in there, and we're continuing to move forward as a city and doing what we can. We did approve something today on the consent agenda, and that was item number G2, and that has to do with the Bronson Boulevard resurfacing project. I know that this is just the agreement to design something for this area. It talks about the sidewalk additions, and I really hope that Manick and Smith Group are also able to reach out to the community, because I do still get emails and they do still have concerns on that of what's going to happen. So I'm really hoping that, as they're doing this design, that they are also doing their due diligence and doing their reach out to the communities. And maybe Director Baker, we can put something together to, again, some of those individuals that have kind of voiced their concerns, that, we can meet with them in an open setting and just kind of talk about things and kind of put some of their concerns to bay, again, in case there is some misinformation out there. I also want to say that, we've got a great grants team. We brought a young lady on within the grants department, and I appreciate all the work that the city staff does to find the grants to walk alongside the funds that we already have, that's able to open up funds to do something else within our community. I also want to echo what Commissioner Hoffman said as it comes to our COW meetings. Again, I had 75 plus emails regarding certain things, especially when it came to the zoning of that. And for us to be able to sit here and have the open communication and the open dialogue with each other, for the community to see and for the community to hear kind of what we're thinking also, I think is also a great thing. Again, not looking for everyone because every meeting, because presentations are good. The information today was wonderful. But I do think being able to designate at least one, that's what the CAL meetings are for. They're really meant for us to have open dialogue and discussion amongst ourselves. So, you now have 2 commissioners here, 3 commissioners there, and for the public to kind of hear and also to see where we're coming from, and for us to let them know that we hear you, we see you, we read these emails, we are not able to respond to all of them. And I think having an open forum like this to where we can have those conversations is really what the community is looking for. And I think I'm excited about the two-way conversion, I will say. I think that's going to do great stuff for our city. So I'm hoping to make it to one of those meetings, and I'll get those dates again from you, Commissioner Hess. And yes, thank you guys for everything you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Brand?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to save some space to just share as well. I would wholeheartedly agree about the appointee evaluation. I think that's long overdue for an overhaul. I think we tend to find ourselves in a position where we get to January, come back from the holidays every year, realize it needs to be done, and then if you do it right, it takes a serious time commitment to get those done. But I think aside from the fact that I think there could be a better process, I think it's largely unfair to our appointees because I think they're getting the feedback woefully too late. And I wholeheartedly agree with the thought that we need to find a more real-time process. Most management strategy says that feedback should happen on a more ongoing real-time basis rather than reflecting a year after something happened, because there is also a potential where people's feedback tends to be more immediate thoughts, and people forget things that happen long-term. So I would wholeheartedly support that, would be happy to be a part of any process to work with Director Dusick and anyone from city staff on that process. I also agree wholeheartedly about the COW format. I was part of the tail end of people that were part of the small groups, and I have seen how much better use of time it is, both for commission and for city staff, to just have a public meeting. I mean, there shouldn't be anything that we're not willing to share with the public anyway, so to me it's great that people get to hear what we would have normally heard. But I think we can take it a step further and let people know what's on our hearts and mind about those issues we're hearing about. So I think that's really just taking it to the next level of that transparency. And I think the mayor said something that really resonated with me at the COW meeting this afternoon. You know, he was saying, well, you know, public safety is holding themselves to this really high threshold of transparency. You know, we should absolutely hold ourselves to that same high standard. And I agree with that. I wanted to thank folks who showed up. There's been 2 public meetings on input sessions and presentations from community planning, economic development about zoning code and map updates. People are pretty interested in the topics and sharing feedback about what's going on. Very well attended, both events. This last one I had an opportunity to go to, and I would imagine there's probably about 100 people, I would say, in the room. And so there's actually a 3rd session if people want to show up for that. This one's for going to be in the Edison neighborhood. It was originally going to be at the East Side Neighborhood Association, but because of the size of the meetings that they've been having, did I say Edison? Sorry. It's going to be at the Dormouse Theater this Wednesday, May 3rd at 6 p.m., I believe. And so you know, definitely encourage the public to show up to those. It's great to see the public showing up and passionate about something, educating them about a topic that's, you know, hard to learn about and find the time to learn about. So wanted to share that as well. I also, you know, we had this proclamation about May being Bike Month, and I really would implore us as a commission and as a community to just keep our foot on the pedal, you know, when it comes to non-motorized forms of transportation. I mean, this is what world-class communities do to go to the next level. And we are on the cusp of being one of those communities that is going to be a world-class community when it comes to non-motorized modes. And there are growing pains, there are inevitable growing pains, including speed and sharing the roads with people. But I think we have a really pivotal opportunity to just keep it up, because we have seen more in the last year or two and towards that transition than I've seen in my entire life here in the city of Kalamazoo. And I think that we're heading in the right direction there. So I hope we keep at it and just reminding people of what our vision is to create with that. And then lastly, I just wanted to share my youngest, Felix, turned 3 this last week. And the reason I wanted to share that is because when I was a young new commissioner and just barely 4 or 5 months into this role, it was a month into the pandemic, and we had planned to have a 3rd child and didn't plan to have it a week into a global health pandemic. And it certainly you know, came as a surprise to us about some of the challenges with his birth. We spent a number of days in the hospital. I actually had one of our virtual meetings that I did while I was holding him in Bronson Hospital. And it really kind of put into perspective about how time flies and how fleeting time is, and especially when you're in a role like this, it just seems like everything was just yesterday. But when you see your little one who's now 3 years old and running all about, and it's definitely strikes you. But I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. I also wanted to just reflectively, just remembering that time, thankful of, you know, like the city manager, the city attorney, just like colleagues at the time, because I remember being a new parent, being in Zoom meetings where we're trying to discuss really challenging issues in the moment. And, you know, they would try to have me share something, and I'd have to press mute because I'd have a crying baby on the other side. And they were incredibly patient to me as a young parent, which, you know, really made me feel like this administration and this city staff were willing to support young parents and people who are going through what I was going through. But yeah, I don't know, just very reflective, I guess, and I wanted to wish my youngest Felix a happy 3rd birthday. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bradle. We can all say that, right? Vice Mayor Cooney, you have anything? Hey, sometimes people ask me, you know, is it a lot of pressure being mayor? And I can tell you, yeah, sometimes it is, and I actually really experienced that pressure this last weekend on Saturday. And what I had the opportunity to do was stand in front of several hundred adults and children and throw the first pitch at the Millwood Little League. For someone who only throws a baseball once a year, that's a lot of pressure, trust me. And I will admit, unlike previous years, I did get a baseball and practice a little bit. That's my secret. It actually didn't bounce on the way to the plate. I was extremely proud of that. But here's what it makes me reflect on as I got to walk in the parade with this whole group of families and young people that participate in Millwood Little League activities, which includes Challengers League and T-ball and Junior Little League and Senior Little League. And as I was walking out into the field there, it was actually beautiful on Saturday morning, if we can remember that. It seems like 2 weeks ago now when we're outside, but it was sunny. It was a little cool, but it was quite nice, and there was that beautiful cut baseball grass. And as I was walking out and just looking around at all the teams that were arrayed around the edge of the infield there, and beyond that, it just strikes you that is how community works. I mean, that is community. We've got people who are volunteering to run the league, and people who are coaches, and people who are team parents, and parents that drop off their kids and pick them up and support them and make sure they get up early enough on a Saturday morning to come out and play a game and enjoy being outside, enjoy meeting new people, enjoy the competition, but enjoy the values. Everyone is read. There's actually a parent commitment that gets read out loud, and there's a participant commitment talking about fair play and how we're going to treat each other. Something that, I don't know, maybe we should all do every day, everywhere, but it's just a reminder of, the heartbeat of a community is people taking their extra time and making sure that we can have activities like that going on. So thank you so much, everyone who volunteers at Millwood Little League to make that happen. And it was just gratifying to be there. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.